Hello, this is gonna be a video for Christmas celebrations 2013. The last few days I've been reading different stuff coming in about elder abuse. And one website I was going to go on to get more details today, but after I got bugs in my computer yesterday, I had to do a few things, so I wasn't able to get this video up last night. But today, when I get everything sorted out with my sound card and all that stuff, and I go to put up the page, I get a warning that it wants to update a Java update. Now I think, well, I didn't get hit with this yesterday, and I looked at some of the details about this plugin, and I thought, well, okay, let's check this out. And I'll put it to be analyzed by the techies, and I got a thing back that it was a phishing file or something. So it's now this website is off limits. That's I don't know who done it, but it's probably the woman who's the number one suspect in the story. But I was thinking, they're coming up to Christmas celebrations, and while everybody's partying, and what did Santa give me? There's millions of people around the world have different circumstances they're living in, and they are not celebrating this year or any other year during Christmas week, Hanukkah, whatever different celebrations, different religions celebrate. But for Christians, we celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus. One thing that stands out to me, that throughout my entire life, after the first time I went to Mexico in 1973, I learned that the words Christ and Mass, Christmas, if you split it up, it means more of Christ. But I've never heard people, even in Mexico, talk about that. I've never heard anybody throughout my life. But I constantly think of it, that people ought to think about Mexico. Those two words, Christ and Mass. Mass means more. So I just turned it around. You got more of Christ. And at this time of the year, there surely should be more of what people are doing than just running around making it the most materialistic time of the year. Of course, you have all these Christian preachers, pastors, evangelists. They kind of like don't really make make a big deal out of it because they themselves are pretty materialistic. So, but every year, this time of year comes around, and there's a lot of people in different circumstances are not really partying. And I'm going to read parts of this file. But the Alex Schadenberg blog is the #1 blog I check out for everything. And then I go to the news wires. So on the 23rd, there's an article called Reality Check. Elder Abuse is on the Rise by Alex Schadenberg. And what really stood out to me, before I got to the blog, I saw it on the news wire that I use, feedspot.com. And it really hit me when I saw it was an AP, Associated Press article. And I was thinking, what? Associated Press? And then it just really seemed to hit me, after all the stuff of Associated Press and Reuters disseminate real misinformation and a lot of disinformation in war news stories, war coverage, that they do publish real, valuable news items like this. Elder abuse. I never really thought much about elder abuse myself until 4 years ago, and Margaret Dorr wrote me, wanted me to try to write letters to the editor to help with the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition and to get our message out. I got a couple of things published, but I just get so frustrated when I look at all these situations in Canada and the U.S. and now worldwide by disability rights pretty down the drain. And people living in institutions, which is really the pits. But where I'm living right now, it's kind of like, things are like, it's livable. But when I read some of these articles about what it's like in these are other people's circumstances, whether they're living in an institution or if they're living at home, I just can't do the subject justice, and I really can't keep control of my enhanced English vocabulary when I get going. But it really hasn't done much, except a few people have paid attention to some of the things I said, and there are a few people. No, not many, but there are a few people have now realized that, hey, this euthanasia stuff is not what they make it out to be. Assisted suicide, euthanasia, and just inhumane living conditions. So I'm going to read a little bit of this because, and want anybody who might happen to watch this video, listen to what some of these details, they'll really take it to heart. And in your neck of the woods, contact your member of parliament. If you're in Quebec, contact your member at the National Assembly. If you're in the States, contact your senators and congressmen. And get vocal. Some of my contacts have been very vocal, and I appreciate the fact that they have. Okay, going on with this, it says many family members or caregivers lack the capacity to care. This is, I think this is the Associated Press guy saying this, or it might be Alex. I think it's, I can't get back to the original article because it's been bugged. And I'm going to continue with this. I mean, the fact that the Associated Press would publish an article like this, I really see that there are some decent journalists and reporters and editors of some of these news sites. They lack the capacity to care, or they have negative attitudes, or they lack empathy and compassion for persons in need, or they may be self-centered. We must not hide our heads in the sand. These are horrific crimes that are perpetrated for many reasons. The suicide lobby are turning a blind eye to the reality of life for many seniors and people with disabilities who are dependent on others when they promote euthanasia and or assisted suicide. Okay, this is Alex talking. And then it says the article begins with a story of the Australian Cynthia Thuresson. By the time the ambulance showed up to the house, the woman's screams were, as the paramedics would later tell it, already at a 10 out of 10. On a bed in the foyer lay 88-year-old Cynthia Thuresson, her eyes screwed up in agony, her fists clenched, with an untended broken leg. Pieces kicked her body from her arms down to her feet, filling the crevices between her toes and under her fingernails. The fact that Cynthia even lived in the house was a surprise to most of the neighbors. None had ever seen her. None had any idea she spent her final days in hellish pain after a fall. None knew that her daughter and her caretaker, Marguerite Thuresson, had waited weeks before calling for help, or that the help would come far too late. In the end, Cynthia Thuresson joined a large and growing cohort of elderly people across the world who live and increasingly die in silence. They are unseen and unheard, left to fend for themselves against the problem society has barely begun to notice, let alone fix: elder abuse. The article continues. This type of abuse, which in many cases includes neglect, is still so hidden that it is hard to quantify. But the broad picture gleaned from hundreds of interviews and dozens of studies reviewed by the Associated Press, is clear. Tens of millions of elders have become victims, trapped between governments and families, neither of which has figured out how to protect or provide for them. Most of the elderly live with relatives or at home, and researchers estimate at least 4 to 10% of them are abused, likely much more. Even by the lowest count of 4%, that means about 30 million people. The demographics alone show clearly that the problem is growing. By the year 2050, there will be more old people on Earth than children for the first time in history because of rising lifespans and falling birth rates. Australia, where Cynthia Zaresen lived, is a developed, wealthy nation considered progressive in its treatment of seniors. But even in high-income countries, the rate of abuse is 4 to 6%, according to the World Health Organization. And even here, the system failed Cynthia over and over again in life and in death. Nothing in the past has disturbed me like this job disturbed me, paramedic Christopher Curtis told police. I've not seen anyone, regardless of their age, that can withstand the level of pain inflicted by a fractured femur for 5 seconds, let alone 3 weeks. And yet Cynthia Zaresen lay helpless for up to 3 months, screaming into silent void of a world that had forgotten her. Elder abuse is a serious societal scourge. To suggest that decriminalizing euthanasia or assisted suicide is safe is a foolish statement considering the real reality of life for many vulnerable seniors and people with disabilities. If you think that assisted suicide is always a free choice, then think again. We do not live in a utopia, nor do we live in a plastic bubble. We live with others, many of whom lack the capacity to care for the needs of vulnerable people, and many of whom are only concerned with their own financial or other potential for personal gain. Society needs to improve how it cares for its vulnerable citizens. Society needs to recognize the need to protect elders from abuse. Society needs to develop a culture of care and reject the killing of its citizens. That's really good. When I was looking at the newspaper article, there was photographs of a woman in China. It was really gruesome looking at the place that she was living in China. And she was suing the Chinese government. She was suing her family, not the government. She was suing her family for not helping her in her old age. She was 94 years old, I think it was. It's ridiculous. And You know, to me, this is because of the changes which took place in the 60s where uh, the family tradition where when people got old that they used to live in bigger families all together and the children would be adults, they'd go to work, take care of the family and the parents and the grandparents and the wives. They didn't have to be slaves to 9 to 5 jobs. They stayed home and kept a clean house, took care of the kids, and that was the way families lived in the 1900s, 1600s. It's kind of like what changed all that is the war, the war culture. World War I, World War II, and then the women's movement, making things and the standards of living be all reorganized so that women at the women who appreciated being housewives and taking care of the family, they were uh, made to look like trash. They had to become part of the big world of freedom and have their jobs and their pay into their pension plans and meanwhile the government, the bankers, they reorganized and started doubling the cost of living. And since then, people have to struggle to survive. And so when they have their old senior citizens, they're just nowhere. And today they're just nowhere. They're on their own. And it's really pathetic because scripturally, they were never meant to be abandoned by their children and their grandchildren. That's one thing you have to really admire about the tribal elders in many countries until all those countries have been toppled upside down by bankers and corporations. And now there's commercials running on CNN about driving up the age of retirement. It said that people being able to retire at 65, now the people who need to get by and pay their bills, they're trying to drive it up to further than 65 years old. You know, for the people who got easy jobs and lots of money and just sit around in their offices, yeah, a lot of these guys, they can work in their 80s and 90s, business and doing the things they like to do. But when you got people who don't have skills for a big high-tech society, and these people do have a right to live out their lives in old age. But I can see with the euthanasia drive is to make conditions as rotten as they can to push people to want to self-destruct. So when I read this article by the Associated Press, it's it's a good step. And it's really a good step when people in Reuters and Associated Press or start putting forth articles like this to educate people to wake up. So this is that article. There's another article I want to read. Alex Shadberg blog. It says, it's put out today, is the Belgian Euthanasia Control and Evaluation Commission a sham? This article was published in Dutch by the Belgian medical newspaper artsintrant.com, whatever, and in French by Le Journal du Médecin on December 20th, 2013, by Dr. Georges Castur and Dr. C. Dom Motier. Abstract. The Belgian Euthanasia Commission for Monitoring and Evaluation has no oversight function. Okay. It only has an administrative function, but it has no oversight function. The Belgian Euthanasia Control and Evaluation Commission, more commonly called the Euthanasia Commission, was established by the Belgian 2002 Euthanasia Act. This committee has as its main task to ensure an after-the-fact application of the law by the doctors who practice euthanasia. The physician must complete, after each act of euthanasia, a document consisting of two parts. The first part contains specific information such as the name of the patient and the physician consultant. This document is confidential, and the Euthanasia Commission does not have access to it at first. The second component is anonymous and contains diagnostic and other circumstances that led to euthanasia. It is only in case of doubt that the committee may decide by a simple majority to consult the first part. Euthanasia Commission can, by a 2/3 majority, decide to refer the case to the prosecutor. Since 2002, over 8,000 cases of euthanasia have been recorded. Hey, let's not forget about all the cases that are never reported. But hey, here's the stats. Since 2002, 8,000 cases of euthanasia have been recorded. Those cases reported to the Euthanasia Commission were, quote, controlled as, quote, anonymous, as described above. However, these two words deserve reflection. In 11 years, no case has been referred to the prosecutor for reasons that are inherent in the law itself. Wow, I've been rambling on for this for years. That as far as all the safeguards and everything I've always rambled on about, but all the campaigns, they had no intentions of enforcing any safeguards. And here we go, years later. In 11 years, no case has been referred to the prosecutor for reasons that are inherent in the law itself. Every physician knows how to complete the second part of the document to not get into trouble. Now, hey, who wants to get into trouble, huh? There are operational issues with the Euthanasia Commission that several recent events have shown. Some registration documents concerning acts of euthanasia were performed by the president of the Euthanasia Commission himself, and other members of this commission appear to be in a conflict of interest. For example, the president of the Euthanasia Commission practiced on September 30th, 2013, under the gaze of cameras, euthanasia, and the transsexual. He became depressed after surgery for sex reassignment. This file was, I remember that case. This file was publicized in the extreme, and it's been submitted by this same president to the Euthanasia Commission. So he reported himself. This file was publicized in the extreme and has been submitted by the same president to the Euthanasia Commission. The president of the Euthanasia Commission reported on himself. However, the president nevertheless stated publicly that this act fits perfectly within the statutory criteria of the law. Now, he's going to question that, huh? Hey, man, you write the law, and hey, you can expose yourself, and you can still come out on top. How could the members of the Euthanasia Commission possibly still oppose this case when their president already played publicly the judge and the executioner? Moreover, the same president said in front of the cameras that he already has practiced euthanasia on foreigners who had found their way to our country for a lethal injection. See, the only way you can deal with a scumbag like this guy and all his worshippers is when they start popping like cockroaches. Or you have a fly swatter with bullets, and you go, whack, whack, whack. Yeah, just get rid of them. I mean, they're victims. Well, they're talking here about the ones who, the ones who voluntarily had themselves finished with. Because, oh man, this is ridiculous. But I'm thinking about all of the cases where they didn't want to be disposed of. But this guy can just do what he wants. So he does. And he never gets his ass kicked because he's the president of the Belgian Euthanasia Commission. And these guys in Quebec get on their planes and these expert panel from the what do you call it? The Royal Canadian Royal Society of Canada and his Quebec Claw get on their planes, went over there, royally hosted by the Belgian killers and the Dutch and everything. They came back here. they now every time there's any ruffling of the feathers, these expert panels uh, uh, come off stuff. Oh, the safeguards are doing what they're intended to do. Yeah, there's no slippery slope. No, it's just everything's okay. We just need safeguards. Yeah. Okay. So back to this one here. To what extent will the members of this committee oppose such abuses? Is it surprising that the impartiality of the commission, as required by law, is in doubt? How can this committee accept as its president a man who presents himself in the media as a judge and a jury? Should we wonder why no file has been referred for prosecution so far? We come to the conclusion that even the most strict application of the law to prevent abuses doesn't work. Therefore, the Euthanasia Commission has no control function at all, but only an administrative record function, an administrative record function. When even the president of the Euthanasia Committee is profiling himself openly as a judge and a jury, it seems all the more important that the operation and the impartiality of this commission is severely questioned. It is high time to consider a solution, such as a Before the Act Control Commission or the replacement of the Euthanasia Commission by a panel of judges advised by doctors if necessary. I don't know if that'll work either. Having a panel of judges advised by doctors. What if the doctors and the judges are just the same hunky dory? You know, you can't have something that's gonna work. You know, like they protect each other. So hey, you can only have a system, or either there's going to be punishment without any loopholes, or you're not going to have anything at all. It's just a free for all. And in so doing, that should justify anybody who wants to down the street of machine guns and to gun everybody down. Hey, what's wrong with that? I mean, these people are suffering. You know, most of the people in the streets are suffering. They go home, they're miserable. They go to work, they're miserable. So, hey, they've already got this going, but they're just targeting certain sectors of the population. And when these people have a payback, when they have a payback, they might wake up and realize, hey, there's some real people around. But right now, the only people who are really concerned and working to fix all these problems that have been created, this thing of just get rid of people who are unproductive, or they don't like the way they look or talk or behave. You know, it's kind of like you're gonna go nowhere, and that they should stop carrying on with this Holocaust reminder about the Jews' Holocaust. The Jews' Holocaust. It started with disabled people, disabled Germans. extermination of anybody who was unfit. So they put an end to that. Um, the only it's time to put an end to that because it's been going on way too long. And for these people, oh, for these people, there all these years, more and more killings have been going on in the U.S., Canada, in Europe. It's causing the people who work as, quote, caregivers, I like to call them scaregivers because some of them aren't really nice people, you know, like, well, this guys, because they just treat, treat the job they're doing like people are like air cargo, you know, it's a kind of, there's times when people being changed, they're kind of like, people are kind of going through a rough time with their breathing or they're in pain, you know, and they don't, some of the PAs don't really care. And I can imagine that people in their homes are going through a lot of the same stuff because I had an apartment and I had home care workers, and the reason I wound up uh, applying for long-term care in this place is because at least there was people around. And whereas in my apartment, twice when I was taking a shower, if I was taking a shower before my home care worker came, all they had to do was sit down and relax, you know, until I came out of the shower and got my boots on, and they could help do breakfast. But I'm thinking about it. I had enough problem with being ripped off, and I wasn't totally the um, I wasn't totally at the stage I've been the last few years. So I can imagine in people's homes and some of the caregivers, caregivers. Well, some of these people are really good. Some of them aren't. They have some really good, decent people. They treat you like a human being, whereas other people is just kind of like they're just there for their money and they can't get any other kind of work. So they don't care how they do their job. And so I really do feel sorry for people, especially older people, because with me, I grew up learning all the basics of like all of us, you know, like be polite, be respectful of authority, and all that stuff. And but they can't after being walked all over, you know, and they were ripped off a few times. Uh, that was it. That was the end of it for me. And since then, people don't push me around too much because I do have a bad side if I have to use it. I prefer not to. I just like to be friends. And but I sure wish something could change to change the mentality of people toward the people who live in institutions and people who are senior citizens because they deserve. People are senior citizens. When you when you get older, it should be a treasure. It should be such a virtue to be able to live to old age instead of being pressured to get rid of yourself because, oh, there's not enough new people being born to take care of the old people. And all this overpopulation of the world stuff, I don't really know if I buy it or not. You know, they tell us there's 7 billion people, but the one thing I learned was that the world right now, with the resources we have, could sustain a population between 8 and 40 billion people. Now, the reason that the resources are in danger is because we got some psychopaths who are taking up and consuming too much of the world's resources. Industry, the military, they're using up too much of the world's resources, and we need to scale it down. They need to, they need to get away from thinking that they are God and that they deserve the whole world, and everybody else shut up. So, oh no, I'm talking too much. Anyway, during Christmas, if you have parents and grandparents in their 80s and 90s, go visit them. Be good, be civilized. And please, like the Alex Shattenberg blog, please read the Alex Shattenberg blog and help the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. It really needs support. Merry Christmas. Have a good Christmas week. And have a Happy New Year. Bonsoir. Oh, no, that's not right. Joyeux Noël. Okay, bye-bye.